Hello, in this video I'm going to talk a bit about this 3D printed model that I've painted and embellished, just to give you a rough idea of my process. This model is called Abode of the Hand. It's by Kijai, and there is a link in the description to the free STL if you'd like to print it yourself. There are also links to my blog, as well as another video I did where I go into a bit more detail about the materials that I use, so I don't have to talk too much about that. This print came off the print bed pretty much perfect. It printed completely supportlessly, even this little bridge here printed without supports, and it was more or less ready to go without any sanding, filing, or clipping. Your results may vary. I mean, that really depends on your printer and your settings, but I kind of lucked out with this one. It was really quite a beautiful print to come off the print bed. I almost didn't want to paint it, except for the fact that I really wanted to paint it. So, right, to the painting. With this model, because it's basically all stone from top to bottom, what was important to me was to kind of distinguish the stone of the castle, the stone of the mountainside, and the hewn stone of the carved hand. And to do that with basically a bunch of grey, I focused on texture. Now the castle already has a great deal of texture worked into the model. It's got all these little bricks, and that's very useful. So when I was blocking in my colors for the castle, I just blocked it in black because I knew that I was just going to highlight all those bricks, and that would bring it out and make it shine. I blocked in the same grey for the mountain and the hand. Then once all that was dry, I went and I added my shadows. Oh no, sorry, I didn't add my shadows. First I added texture to this mountain to distinguish it from the hand. I wanted to keep the hand very smooth. I wanted the mountain to be rough. I wanted this stone to look quite rough. So in order to achieve that look, I applied some really blobby bits of acrylic paint, and I mixed them right on the model. I just had a large amount of white and a little bit of black on my brush, and I blobbed it on there. I'll make a technique video at some point, and I'll link it through after I've made that, because it's quite a useful technique to add a bit more texture to your models in various situations. Now, the designer had already incorporated a lot of bumps and dimples to this stone, but I just wanted to add some more of my own to really make it stand out from the hand. So I let all of that dry. I let it dry a good long while, because when you add paint to a surface and you do it in a very blobby thick way, you have to make sure that it's got plenty of time to dry, or else you run the risk of accidentally lifting it the next time you go to add another layer. So the next thing I did once everything was good and dry was I added in all of the shadows. Now the shadows are added with black wash, and that's just more watered down acrylic paint. I went into all these crevices between the fingers, made the stairs completely black with the wash, stairs here, and all of these really deep crevices I made sure to add a wash and really define those shadowed areas, so that when I went to add the highlights, they would really pop. In the castle, because I painted it black, I didn't really have any shadows to add. So I let all of the washes dry all over before moving on to my highlights. Now, starting at the bottom with the hand, I applied probably a good 4 or 5 layers of highlights, and that's with a dry brush. And they were white highlights. So it was kind of a mixture of white and black to make a very light grey, but it was a mostly white grey. And I did this over and over again, letting each layer dry to bring out these stony kind of facets that were already on the model. I just brought them out on the steps. Just use a dry brush to highlight the corners, and that makes a really good finish. And yeah, just the steps over here, all over the hand, just everywhere there was even the slightest ridge, I just kept highlighting it over and over again until it got to the point where I was happy. Now, the stone here didn't really need highlights at all because I had already done that with by applying the white paint. The little bridge here, I just kind of painted dark gray, and I added some washes and highlights. It's not really a huge feature. But yeah. Then it was time to move on to my metallics. I like to incorporate metallics into most of my models. I really like the way that it catches the light, and it catches your eye from across a room even, so they don't kind of just sink into a shelf. Anyway, highlights here are metallic black and silver, and a metallic blue for the turrets. And that was just applied with a dry brush. You can also see inside here, there's even stairs in here. Very difficult to see on the camera. And there's a little building inside, so that has a blue roof as well. So that was really, really a quick job, to be honest, because the metallic paints kind of tend to do the work for me a lot of the time. And I let that all dry, and then to finish it off, to bring a bit more blue to the model, I actually dry brushed more metallic blue onto the surfaces of the buildings, the outside, and there's a little bit of blue here as well. And you can see a little doorway here through the tunnel. The other doorways don't have a defined arch, but here I made that blue as well. Fun fact about the tunnels in this model, they're actually tunnels. They're not just black kind of painted on doors, and this one goes through as well. It's just a really cool little feature. So yeah, once all that was dry, my model was basically finished, but I like to add little fluffy bits, as you've probably noticed if you follow any of my other work. I really enjoy using model finishing materials because they bring kind of another degree of life to the model. I used nail flocking powder, which is like for manicures. It's some weird stuff that I just like to use on my models. I used static grass, and I used some clump foliage and some lichen. So there's some brown lichen and some green lichen. I didn't really have a plan for where I placed these bits of foliage and grass. I just thought, well, looking at the model, where might roots take hold? And that's where I applied it. I applied it using white school glue, that's PVA. You can also use super glue for the lichen and the clump foliage. Definitely PVA for static grass or any kind of other, like the nail flocking powder. Definitely use PVA. And I'll do a technique video eventually for the application of that as well. Though I'm sure YouTube has many out there. And once that was dry, took me probably I think a couple of days to really get it to where I was happy, kind of looking at it and going back in and adding more green. And that was it. That was all there was. So I guess I'll see you later. Bye.